I got the moves. I got the moves. I'm making moves. You gotta move. You gotta make the city move. Like, whoa. I make the city move. I got the move.
Though the date of the NBA draft for 2020 is currently unknown, there is still a ton of hype surrounding it. The 2020 NBA draft class to me is really interesting, as there is no standout player. There is no guy who is 100% going first overall, like what we had with Zion Williamson last year. It makes all mock drafts like this unpredictable and exciting, as it's going to be even harder this year to correctly guess who goes where in what order. In today's video, I'm going to be presenting to you my 2020 NBA mock draft from picks 14 to 1. The order of which teams go in is based on the record from this season, so that's why today the Golden State Warriors will have the number 1 pick. The reason why each player is selected to each team is based on fit, interest from that team, and personally where I believe they rank amongst their class. Anyway, if you're new here and enjoy the video, please be sure to subscribe for more NBA related content like this. I'm trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so all support is very much appreciated. Anyway, with that all being said, let's get right into this mock draft.
Lucas.
With the 14th pick in the 2020 NBA draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Jaden McDaniels from the Washington Huskies. Jaden McDaniels had a successful freshman season personally at Washington, where he averaged 13 and 6 a game. He didn't shoot too efficiently, only 40% from the field and 33% from 3, but I personally think he's done enough to show he is worthy of a lottery selection and a spot on an NBA team. His selection to Portland is very interesting to me, and I like it a lot, as the Blazers have a lot of young guards and guards on the roster right now. With main big men Zach Collins and Yusuf Nurkic returning soon from injury, I don't believe the Blazers need another center as well, so a wing player like McDaniels is perfect. I've loved watching McDaniels since high school, and though I think he's a tad overrated, I think Portland is arguably his best fit in this draft, and I think he's deserving of a top 15 selection, so I have him going 14th overall. With the 13th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Vernon Carey from Duke University. Vernon Carey had an absolutely dominant season as a freshman at Duke University. He led the team in scoring and helped them bounce back after losing their top 3 scorers in last year's draft. Carey averaged 17 points a game this season to go along with 8.8 rebounds, and he shot extremely efficiently from the field, 57%, and from beyond the arc as well, nailing 38% of his long-range jumpers. Personally, I believe Carey could go higher in this draft, basing this on overall skill level, but I think the teams in the lottery this year aren't exactly in his favour. Not many really need a center that bad, in my opinion. However, I do believe the Pelicans would be smart to pick up Vernon. The Pelicans' depth at the center position isn't all that huge, and whilst you could argue Zion Williamson or Brandon Ingram could slide there for a small ball lineup, that just isn't likely to me. The Pelicans do have Jackson Hayes, but I don't really have the highest hopes for him turning into a solid center, and I'm more sold on Carey than Hayes. That's just my opinion though. Apart from Hayes, there's no other players really holding Carey back here from getting good minutes and opportunity in this Pelicans lineup, which is why I would be happy to see him land in New Orleans on draft day. With the 12th pick, the Sacramento Kings select Killian Hayes from France. Whilst doing research for this video, Killian Hayes instantly became one of my favourite prospects for this draft, and I honestly may make a completely separate video just about him soon. The reason why I like him so much is because though his stats don't say a lot, the eye test does. Watching Hayes is an absolute joy. He has so many outstanding features to his game many current NBA players don't have. His step back jumper is on point and is extremely reminiscent of James Harden. His passing game gives you flashes of a prime Manu Ginobili. His potential is sky high, but I feel like he may be overlooked in this year's draft. International prospects often get overlooked for some reason. We saw it happen with Luka Doncic, and I'm anticipating it to happen with Lamelo Ball as well. But some of these guys that played overseas are the best prospects in the draft. Hayes averaged 11 points and 6 assists this year in the French Basketball League, and dominated in the paint with his amazing floater and layup package. I believe he'll be a great fit in Sacramento, as the Kings are stacked on centers and wings, but really need another guard to pair with De'Aaron Fox. Whilst Fox is a good playmaker, he's still a score-first point guard. Hayes can be the playmaker for the Kings and be a solid backcourt pairing with De'Aaron Fox. That's just how I see him fitting though if he were to play on the Kings, but he'd more than likely come off the bench. Overall, whilst Hayes is still a bit raw, he has a ton of potential to be a great player down the track, and has shown flashes of NBA star level play in his stint in the French leagues, and I believe the Kings would benefit by taking a chance on him, if he's still available at this spot. With the 11th pick in the 2020 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Deni Avdija from Israel. I'll be completely honest here, I'm not 100% sold on Avdija being an NBA All-Star, but I do see the potential nonetheless. Avdija played in the Israeli Premier Basketball League this past year, and the Euro League, where he had some success, averaging 12.3 points, 6 rebounds, and 2.5 assists in the Israeli League, and he averaged 4 points a game in the Euro League. His biggest achievement though was his great performance at the 2019 Under-20 FIBA European World Championships, where he led Israel to a gold medal, winning MVP along the way. His selection to the Spurs is good to me, as they look to rebuild this off-season, and he can start to fill in the gap that may be left when DeRozan either leaves in free agency or is traded, one of the two. The Spurs are loaded on young guards, so to me, acquiring another one is a bit unnecessary. Deni has the potential to go top 5, but I have seen his stock slip a bit lately, and since I'm not all that high on him, I have him going 11th, but if you have him going as high as maybe 6th or even 5th, I wouldn't be too mad. With the 10th pick, the Phoenix Suns select Nico Mannion from the University of Arizona. Nico Mannion solidified himself as a top 10 prospect this year at Arizona. He had a great year there, averaging 14 points a game and over 5 assists. He did shoot quite poorly, under 40% from the field, but he overall had a very positive year to me, and again, just solidified himself as a top 10 selection for this year's draft. In my eyes, a selection to Phoenix would be great for both the Suns and Nico Mannion. Mannion can pair it with Booker in the backcourt and be somewhat of a playmaker for them. Obviously, he'll play behind Rubio to begin with, but that may actually help him early on, as Rubio can mentor and help develop Mannion. Also, Phoenix is in Arizona, so it won't be that difficult of a transition at all for Mannion, which will obviously help a ton. Overall, with his passing skills, jump shot and creativity, Mannion is a for sure top 10 pick in my eyes, and I think Phoenix is a great destination for him. With the 9th pick, the Washington Wizards select Theo Maledon from France. For the second French player to enter this mock draft, we have Theo Maledon. Maledon played in LNB Pro A League and the Euro League, but he has also played for the French national team. His biggest strength is in the open court, as he uses his long strides and ability to get downhill quick. It's overall impressive. He's creative at getting to the basket, and his jump shot has shown promise over this past year. He averaged a solid 7 points and 3 assists in his EuroLeague games, and in the other league, averaged about the same. The Wizards to me couldn't go wrong with him or Nico Mannion, but with the return of John Wall imminent, I think that Theo Maledon may be the best option. But again, if they choose Nico Mannion over him, I think it's fine. And this goes for Phoenix as well. If they get Maledon instead of Mannion, that's no big deal in my eyes. The reason why I have these two players where they are is based off of fit mainly, as Mannion's a better fit in Phoenix and Washington, and vice versa with Maledon. Overall, whilst I don't think Mannion has superstar potential or anything, I think he's a good choice for the Wizards in the context of their current situation. With the 8th pick in the draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Daniel Oturu from the University of Minnesota. Daniel Oturu is a 6'10" center from Minnesota, and I think he's the perfect selection for the Hornets if he's available. Oturu dominated at Minnesota this season, stats-wise, as he averaged a double-double of 20 and 11, and he also shot around 56% from the field, which is impressive. For a center, he also shot really well from deep, about 36%. He's a dominant offensive player and is extremely efficient around the rim, hitting 71% of his shots from within 5 feet of the hoop. As I mentioned, he's a perfect pick for the Hornets. The Hornets have one of the worst rosters in the league, but where their small amount of talent lies is in the backcourt, which means they need a frontcourt player, a center. Oturu can be that young center that matches the timeline of guys like Devontae Graham and Malik Monk, and hopefully becomes a good enough player that the future of Charlotte looks bright. I really like the pairing of Graham and Oturu here, and it's my main reason why I want this drafting to happen. But the lack of depth at the center position adds to the reasons why Oturu should be drafted by Charlotte. Again, this is just a good selection for both sides, and if it happens on draft night, I would say it's a win for Charlotte. With the 7th pick, the Chicago Bulls select Isaac Okoro from Auburn University. Isaac Okoro was a standout player from Auburn this past season, where he averaged 12 points a game. Okoro is a small forward, and that's what makes his field goal efficiency even crazier. He shot over 50% from the field this year. Though his 3-point shot and free throw game does need some work, the fact he shoots 60% from the 2-point areas is amazing and shouldn't be discredited. It's not like he's a center either, only scoring putbacks, etc. Another strength in Okoro's game is his insane athleticism. The amount of posters and crazy dunk highlights he got this season is ridiculous. The reason why I like his fit on Chicago is because though he definitely won't start or anything, the Bulls need a young wing player. Markkanen's a big, Levine's a guard, Kobe White's a guard. I just think he's the missing piece to the young core. With a new front office in Chicago and hopefully the firing of Jim Boylan soon, the Bulls should make the right decision for their franchise come draft day. And if they were to get anyone, I think Okoro would have to be the best option, apart from maybe a guy like Wiseman, but he would already be gone by the time the 7th pick came around, which is why I have the Bulls getting Okoro today. With the 6th pick, the New York Knicks select Cole Anthony from the University of North Carolina. Cole Anthony is a point guard from the North Carolina Tar Heels and stands at 6'3". He had a great season at UNC stats-wise, averaging 18.5 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, but his efficiency wasn't great, shooting only 38% from the field. However, as a team, the Tar Heels struggled mightily this season, finishing the college year with a losing record of 14-19, and were 6-14 in their conference. Even with this poor winning season though, Anthony's draft stock has remained high, and he is still seen as a top guard in this year's draft class, with his amazing scoring and defensive skills on display this past season. To me, if the Knicks fail to get Lamelo Ball, which they probably will with the 6th pick, Anthony is by far the next best option. The Knicks have been looking for a franchise point guard for a while now, trading for guys like Dennis Smith Jr. and drafting players like Frank Ntilikina, with the hope they turn into something special. However, that has continuously failed to happen, but I believe that can change with the drafting of Cole Anthony. When he's first there, he would have an extreme lack of help, but this might also be a good thing as he'd get a lot of opportunities in his first year there. It'd be kind of similar to Ja Morant, where the organization lets the young guard take over the keys of the offense immediately. The duo of him and RJ Barrett would also be very exciting to me, and I believe they would have the potential to be a top duo in the NBA down the track and maybe one day lead the Knicks to a playoff spot. With the 5th pick, the Detroit Pistons select Onyeka Okongwu from the University of Southern California. We've officially entered the top 5 of this mock draft, and at the 5th spot, I have Okongwu. Okongwu was the lesser known star of Chino Hills when he played alongside the Ball Bros, and once the spotlight of them disappeared, he leapt out in college. At USC, he averaged 16 and 8 and shot an unreal 61% from the field. His rim protection defense is amazing, and he's great at avoiding foul trouble, and on offense, his athleticism and strength helps him dominate the paint. The reason why I think he'd be a great addition to Detroit is due to their rebuild. The Pistons got rid of Drummond at the deadline this season, and it seems like Griffin is more than likely on the way out too, especially with the way Christian Wood has been playing. Okongwu can slide next to Wood to make an insanely athletic front court, and with Rose remaining at point guard, I think this team could be a playoff side, or be at least one piece away from becoming one. With the 4th pick, the Atlanta Hawks select Anthony Edwards from Georgia University. Anthony Edwards had a great season at Georgia. He averaged 19 and 5 for the year, and though the Bulldogs did struggle a bit wins-wise this year, Edwards was by far a standout player. To me, he should be a top 3 pick, and probably even maybe 1st overall, but since I'm basing this off of team fit as well, I've got to put him at 4th with the Atlanta Hawks. I really like his fit at Atlanta, and his pairing with Trae Young in the backcourt would be so exciting to me. Though both need the ball a lot, I think it could work, and the Hawks could put an emphasis on Trae Young's passing and get Edwards some off-ball shots. Edwards is arguably the most talented prospect in the draft, and again, I think his fit alongside Trae Young would be great, so this selection does make sense for the Hawks. With the 3rd pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Lamelo Ball from the Illawarra Hawks from the NBL. Due to his signature shoe he made with Big Baller Brand, Lamelo Ball had to forego college and go straight to the professional leagues. He ended up in Australia in the NBL and actually played extremely well down here, averaging 17 points per game, 7 assists, and 7.5 rebounds per game. Though he shot inefficiently, 37% from the field, the trend over the season was steady improvement in this area. Unfortunately, he would get injured as the season was coming to a close, ending his season early. But from my point of view, he had proved himself enough as a top pick and also earned himself the NBL's Rookie of the Year award. To me, his selection to Minnesota is an underrated destination for him, and a great one at that. The Timberwolves are lacking a point guard to run the offense and be the #1 playmaker, and whilst Karl Anthony Towns is a very underrated one, he's still mainly a scorer, and same with D'Lo. To be honest, apart from Cat and D'Lo, the Wolves roster is extremely weak. Lamelo Ball would add to the young core of Minnesota and hopefully become an instant contributor at the starting point guard spot, as well as bringing some hype back to Minnesota's franchise. He'd be behind D'Lo and Cat, of course, limiting his opportunities a bit, but I think playing behind stars like them will give him plenty of education on how to play at an NBA level, and I don't think playing behind them will hurt him too much. At the end of the day, the Wolves have a superstar big man, a superstar guard, and though it may seem they need a wing, Wiggins didn't work in their system. Lamelo Ball's playmaking will be a huge addition to the roster and potentially make them a playoff team, finally, after all these years of disappointment. With the 2nd pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Obi Toppin from the University of Dayton. Obi Toppin had a very successful sophomore year at Dayton University. He averaged over 20 points a game this year, 7.5 boards, and has shot phenomenally, 63% from the field and almost 40% from 3. That's just ridiculous. He led Dayton to an amazing record of 29-2 overall, and they went undefeated in their conference, which is absolutely amazing. it's clear Toppin has had a fantastic year, which makes me believe he is undoubtedly a top 3 pick. With already plenty of young backcourt players and having stars in the front court in Kevin Love and Andre Drummond, the only thing the Cavs are lacking right now is a good wing player, and Toppin could be that guy. One thing that Toppin will definitely bring to Cleveland is excitement and hype, something they've unfortunately lacked since LeBron left. I would be extremely intrigued to see a Darius Garland pairing with Obi, and even with Sexton too. I'm not sure why, but I just feel like those guys could work well together. Also, Toppin would get a lot of opportunities in Cleveland, which is something you love to see, as experience is the best way to develop a player to me. With all this being said though, we can finally move on to the number 1 pick. With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Golden State Warriors select James Wiseman from the Memphis Tigers. James Wiseman had a very unique year as a freshman. He only played a total of 3 games for Memphis, and then the NCAA declared he was ineligible to play. He then decided to declare for the NBA draft after receiving a 12-game suspension, and though some expected his draft stock to drop, it didn't, and I think the main reason why was because he was absolutely dominant in his short college stint. He averaged almost 20 points per game and 10 boards, and he shot historically good, 77% from the field, which is insane. Though he didn't attempt any threes, I believe this can be added to his game down the track. For as to why I believe the Warriors should draft him, it's pretty simple. The Warriors have a phenomenal backcourt with the Splash Bros, and their wings are good too, with Wiggins and Draymond. However, currently and throughout their dynasty, the Warriors always lacked a decent center. Sure, JaVale McGee and Bogut were okay, but they weren't phenomenal by any stretch. Wiseman has the potential to be a top 3 center in the league one day, and as I said, the Warriors don't have a lot of big man depth, so he'd slide in really well into the starting lineup. Overall though, the Warriors have thought about getting other players such as Toppin and Avdija, but I think Wiseman is the smartest choice here for them, and though he only played 3 games, he has by far proved himself enough that he should be the number 1 pick in this year's draft. If the lottery messes around a bit, it may be likely he falls to 2nd or 3rd, but if he's available when it's time for the Warriors to choose, I think he's the best option for them on draft day. And that will conclude my official 2020 NBA mock draft. Do you agree with my picks? What would you change? Let me know all your thoughts on this down in the comments below. For all of you that stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. It truly means a lot. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.